نحمده ونصلي على رسول الكريم أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. If you just joined us, it's Radio Al Ansaar. Radio Al Ansaar broadcasting from our studios here in West Road, Overport. You with me, Anwar Moolla, and I'll be with you till 8 p.m. having a really interesting discussion today with our studio guest who's sitting next to me here. And it's Assalamu alaikum and a very warm welcome to Farzanah Manjoo. Farzanah is an attorney, and we're going to be speaking tonight about intellectual property and its effect on business. Assalamu alaikum, Farzanah.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Thanks for joining us, Farzanah. I see you're a bit nervous being on the radio for the first time, but we'll keep you comfortable and get straight into the topic. The Minara Chamber of Business brings you the Business Matters program, as it has for many, many years. And it's great to be with you every Monday evening. Farzanah, intellectual property, not something that's often discussed, something that I think you kind of specialize in. But before we get into the topic, tell us a little bit about yourself, your studies, and what got you into the legal field.
Yeah, so I got to university and I studied my B Social Science degree. And then it was a matter of deciding which route I'm going to head in, and the decision was actually made by my father and another family member who introduced me to an IP attorney, and I then went into law. I studied through UNISA, and while working for the attorney until I finished my LLB.
Okay.
Continued with him, and that is where my interest in IP started.
IP meaning intellectual property. Okay. So you've kind of gone the route of intellectual property. Other attorneys would either go into conveyancing or criminal or whatever. So is your focus primarily and solely on intellectual property?
It was for a greater part of my career until I opened my own practice, which is now in my 8th year, and I've been taking on other legal aspects.
Okay. I see you do a bit of estate planning, wills and deceased estates, unlawful competition and restraints of trade, debt collecting, commercial contracts, general civil and commercial litigation as well. So yes, quite a varied amount of stuff there.
Yes.
Enough to keep you occupied for a hard day's work.
Tell me about it.
Okay. Intellectual property, we talk about property that people own. Tell us a little bit about what would be intellectual property, so to speak.
Okay, so we usually focus on the physical aspects of assets in a business or personal. Intellectual property is intangible assets. It's things that you can't really see or hold on to or touch. These things are created by the human mind, and it involves innovations such as invention, designs, brand names, artistic works, proprietary information, and the like. So you look at it as you take insurance policies on your life or your business, or
yes,
things like that, medical aid, whatever. Intellectual property is, you can view it as a kind of an insurance policy on your
on the assets
that you have to build your business and your reputation. Yes.
So we normally hear about the big brands, the Louis Vuittons and the Christian Dior's and the Jimmy Choos of this world. I'm sure they have obviously protected their brands, which is their intellectual property. I mean, I can't just go out there and go to a manufacturer of handbags, for example, and says, make me a handbag, but brand it Louis Vuitton. I would be infringing on their intellectual property. Am I right?
Yes, you are quite correct. It's going to be a very costly affair if you have to do that. So the big brands, anyone, whether it's a big brand or a small brand, the big brands they go all out. They go full out in protecting their trademark, in their designs of their handbags. In your example, even the pattern of the fabric.
Yes, yeah.
The logo, the LV logo, they go all out and protect everything. Their trade secrets, their design secrets. So it's very hard for somebody to come in and copy their bags exactly.
Yeah, I was in China about a week and a half ago, and I went to a place where they sell all these what you call fakes, right? I unashamedly say that I'm not scared to use any of those. I'm not a follower of brands, so to speak. But we were just doing a comparison. There was, for example, a handbag which is called Hermes. I don't know exactly how you pronounce it. Hermes, worldwide brand, and they have a particular brand called a Birkin within their studio. And apparently, I've been told that these handbags go for hundreds of thousands of dollars. In fact, you can't just walk into a store and buy them. You have to be on a waiting list, and then they'll invite you and whatever. And then there was I like looking at this Hermes Birkin handbag that I could buy for 1,500 rand, and somebody was with me who knew a lot about handbags. Says, I mean, this is as original as it can get. It's the leather is genuine, the way, the make, everything probably comes out of the same factory. One comes out in the day, one comes out in the night, whatever. And what I'm saying is that the comparison we were doing is we were trying to work out what type of margins or what type of money these brands make out of the perceptions that are created in terms of branding, in terms of the value of that Birkin handbag. And there was an article that came out, funny enough, last week, which I was reading, and they did a whole analysis of these handbags and broke it down into how much the fabric costs, how much they pay to sew it at the factory, right down to the nth degree. And the profit margin, so to speak, was like absolutely insane. Like cost you 500 rands to make a handbag, and you're selling it for like 50,000 rand, so to speak, right? And there was a call to say, well, this thing shouldn't be allowed because it's a rip-off. But again, it's human perception. If you perceive that handbag to have that value, you're going to pay for it. Yes. So I suppose, those type of brands have really watertight ways to protect their stuff, and that nobody can go out there and just copy it. Okay, you'll find it in a dungeon somewhere in China, but really on a normal basis, you're not going to really find this. So, I mean, your work out here in South Africa, where would it start, son? Would it start from the time when a person is just thought of an idea and has really not perceived that and put it into reality? Or would you be approached at a much later stage to say, well, I think I'm onto something good here. It's catching on, whether it's a housewife that's making biscuits and has got a biscuit, whatever, call it whatever you want, or at what stage are you approached?
So the misconception most oftentimes with small businesses or even a big business I see now is that IP is not so up there on their list on the priorities. Right. And they come to me at a very later stage, like you rightfully say, like once it has caught on in the market and it's gained traction, and now they're seeing that there's value in it and they want to protect the name or the product or whatever. Rightfully, these businesses or individuals should rather approach an IP attorney much earlier in the whole process. So at the beginning, at the word go, when you develop a trademark or you develop an idea, or that is when you're supposed to have your first consult. I do get approached at inception, and there are often times when I do get approached, like when they've chosen the name and they've applied it to their products, and now they call, Farzanah, please, I need to protect this name. My products are being manufactured and they're going to be on the ship and they're coming through here. I need to see if anyone else is using it in this country. That is the incorrect way of approaching your IP, and it is
I think it's important that one does that timelessly.
Timelessly and in the beginning, so that you're not tramping on anyone's toes. There's no infringements that would possibly occur. And then I'd have to deliver the bad news. Look, there's already a trademark that is similar or is identical on the register. And I'm sorry, I can't do anything else to help you.
Okay, we'll talk to the process just now of what is the process from inception till you actually get the trademark registered. But let's just discuss the different types, because we're talking about patents, trademarks, copyrights, and trade secrets, and when a business should consider each. So talk me through the differences between what is a patent, what is a trademark, what is a copyright, and then we can go from there.
Okay, so intellectual property is more of an umbrella term for these different aspects of IP. You have your patents, you have your trademarks, you have your copyrights, your trade secrets. So patents is when you develop a groundbreaking machine that doesn't exist anywhere to make people's lives easier, or innovative software algorithm, or pharmaceutical composition.
Something that comes to mind is I had a gentleman in the studio just a few weeks ago before the Minara Business Awards, and they were nominated for the small business category, and they had developed something where they were extracting water out of, for example, literally out of air, and helping buildings and taking this water from that water creating electricity. So when there was water, they were harvesting the water, taking the water, creating electricity. But they had a patent over that, which means that nobody else could do that in South Africa, which was actually quite a brilliant idea, and they won the award actually at the Minara Awards evening. So would that be an example of a patent?
That would be an example of a patent. With patents, you need to before you introduce it into the market, you need to protect it. So it must be new, and it must be novel, and it must be non-obvious. So when I say new, it mustn't exist anywhere in the world. It destroys your novelty aspect of the patents. So with patents, a business must consider protection from word go. Then you have your trademarks. The trademarks, everybody knows brand names, so it covers your symbols, your logos, your taglines, your name, or any other branding elements that identify and distinguish a company or its products. Trademarks also, when you launch a product or service, or prior to launching that product or service,
right,
that is when you consider it, before you even apply that trademark to your products.
Okay.
So you choose a name or you choose multiple names, and that is when you have to start the trademark process. Copyrights protect original creative work, your writing, your novels, your literature, music, films, music, math, that kind of thing, software code, artwork, architectural designs. Copyright protects all those things. Copyright in South Africa subsists automatically, so there's no registration required.
So if somebody wrote a book, for example, a novel, would that be automatically copyrighted?
Yes, that would be automatically copyrighted. I'll give you or give the listeners an idea of how to protect your copyright. When you think of an idea of, for example, writing a book, so you think of your synopsis and you think of the storyline, write an email and email it to yourself.
Right.
So it's dated and it's date stamped, and it shows that you had thought of that storyline prior to anyone else. So if anyone else comes in, copying your storyline, copying your wording, words and things, you have your protection.
What about AI? If AI copies you?
So you can sue AI apparently in this day and age now.
Okay.
Then you have trade secrets. Trade secrets is all your confidential information. Like your formulas, recipes, manufacturing techniques, customer lists, those kind of things.
So let's just talk about, say, a lady's at home making achar, for example, just example, and very popular, caught on everywhere, and she's got the recipe to that achar of how much of every ingredient you put in there. Would that be a trade secret then?
Yes, that is a trade secret. You know, housewives and their recipes are very hard to
hard to get a recipe out of a housewife.
Yes.
Okay. Right.
So that is a trade secret. A very popular one, which we IP attorneys love to talk about, is Coca-Cola and their
recipe.
Their recipe. And I know in this world we are passing through right now, it's a no-go brand right now, but in any event,
well, I suppose whether it's Coke or Pepsi or any of them, you know.
So they protect their recipes it's so closely guarded that it's kept in a vault, and only 2 people in the entire company have access to that vault.
Okay.
So people have come in, they tried to replicate, and they were not successful. Only they know what goes inside the actual
recipe.
drink. Yes.
Okay. Lots of speculation about what actually goes in there, and some says the word Coke came from the word cocaine or whatever, but who knows?
Who knows?
Anyhow, it's
Yes.
it's, as you say, that's a trade secret. Yeah.
That's a trade secret. Yes.
Yeah. So let's say, okay, I now, for example, the business I am in, I'm a manufacturer or I'm an importer of men's suits, and I've thought of all these brilliant names which I've applied to my suits and whatever. So now I don't want anybody to bring that particular brand of suits into the market, because I'm afraid they're going to bring an inferior product. It's going to detract from what I'm doing. But more than that, I want to have exclusivity on those names. And these are names that I have thought of, kind of thing. So where do I start? I come to you and say, Farzanah, I've got a name. I'm bringing suits into the country. I want to register a name for my suits. Where would you lead me to?
Okay, so at the beginning, I would have a discussion with you on your goals and idea of where these names are going to end up. Then I would do a what we call a trademark
search. So
search.
hopefully they end up overseas somewhere, and I'm the next new Hugo Boss or Armani or something. But anyway, that's nice to think of. But that's where I want to be. So anyway, yeah.
So then we do a trademark search. We call it a trademark search, and I would give you a report on the availability, conflicts on the trademark register, conflicts on the company names register. And then I would tell you whether it is a subject of a trademark, or it can be the subject of a trademark. Then, depending on the results of the search, for example, if let's say it's all clear, we go ahead and we filed an application for registration of your trademark.
Okay, Farzanah, before you go any further, we're going to stop for a short ad break, and then you're going to take us through the process of how we can register our intellectual property after that. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. If you've just joined us, I've been having a really intellectual discussion on intellectual property with Farzanah Manjoo. Farzanah Manjoo is an attorney, and she's joined me here in the studios at Radio Al Ansaar, and we're talking about intellectual property. Farzanah, before we went for the ad break, you're telling me about the processes that have to be followed to register intellectual property. So, for example, I gave an example of my bringing in a suit, and I want to register the label. Take me through the process.
Okay, so before the break, we spoke about the trademark search report, and I said that if all is clear in the report, we go ahead and we file an application for registration.
Who do you file this application with?
So we file it with SIPSI. SIPSI has different departments. One of them is the intellectual property department, which covers trademarks and patents, and the designs departments. So we file it with the trademarks office at SIPSI, and we get an application number. You use that application number, you apply your TM to your next to your name, and you carry on selling your suits under that brand label. And in about 15 months, yes, we should get a registration certificate.
Okay, so let me go back one step, right? So assuming I want to use a particular brand for my suits, but when you do your search and you go through your subsidy or whatever, you find that somebody else is using that brand or something very similar. Maybe a couple of words are different or a couple of letters of the words are different, but they're using it for something completely unassociated. For example, in the food industry, would that be a detriment to me being able to use that brand or that whatever that wording is in, for example, in clothing, because somebody else is using it in food?
Yeah, so food and clothing are unrelated classes.
Right.
That's how what we consider it to be. So I would just advise you maybe to tweak it a little bit, just to create a distinctiveness for yourself. Sometimes, if it's a bigger company in the food industry, they would send you a cease and desist letter, and then
so obviously they would have to find your product or your branding in the marketplace to find out that there's somebody else doing it first.
Yes.
So you'll have to be out there, and then when you're out there and they find it, then suddenly they're gonna try to trace you, right?
Yes, that's correct. And so you would get this letter, and then all hell breaks loose. And so we try to settle these matters quite reasonably and amicably. When I say that it's unrelated classes and it could happen, that means that this food company is trying to protect their trademark from dilution. So when I say dilution, it means that the less of that brand name in the marketplace, the better it is for the food company, because they create a uniqueness and distinctiveness and they hold that monopoly in that name. So just a little tip: when you're choosing names, don't be too common. Don't use common phrases and daily phrases that you would think that is okay. Try and be unique. Try and be inventive. It's nice when we get names that are distinctive, that are unique, that are new, rather than having your daily phrases.
You want to try not to copy somebody. We're talking about copyright, but we're trying not to copy somebody.
Yes, and besides that, you're trying to create a distinctiveness for yourself and a reputation for yourself.
Okay. So how would a person that's making biscuits at home protect her labeling or whatever? I mean, whatever they call themselves, there's a lot of people that are really have done extremely well and have become known for their biscuits or for their brownies or for whatever, their achars or whatever. So one that comes to mind, I don't know, Halima's pickles or whatever for want of something else. How do you protect something like that?
Yeah, so in a similar way. So if you're using the pickle name, we would file the trademark. She's been in existence in
I don't know why that name just came to mind, but I'm not a pickle eater, mind you. But anyhow,
similar. But you do know them because you come across it, right? So we would do a search. We would do the same process, the search, and then we advise you on your name and we advise you on how to better it. And then we file an application thereafter. So when you have common words, common names like this, we would advise you just to file it in a logo form, because it adds a little bit more flair, a little bit more distinctiveness. So if somebody has to see the logo, they know that it is it's coming from that stable, so to speak.
So I'm going to use another example. For example, in the food game again, I mean, if you go to Johannesburg, there used to be a famous place called Akalwayas, for example. Now, anybody that's got the surname Akalwayas has set up a food outlet, and you don't necessarily know which Akalwayas this is, because everybody that's Akalwayas says, well, I have the right to use the name Akalwayas because it's my surname. So even somebody who's married into that family would pay, I can use that name. So, I mean, what did they do wrong in the first place? They should have, I would think, registered that name at the very outset.
They should have registered that name at the outset. You have all these big designers like Hugo Boss and Louis Vuitton and Dolce and Gabbana, and they all use their names. They're very fortunate they are very fortunate that their names have taken up, become so well known.
Look, but also they've spent millions and millions on advertising and marketing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So they've really spent money on advertising, marketing, creating that need in
niche.
In the human mind that you really need this thing, and you're going to be show your success if you're using it. So in the case of your example, Akal Wires, it's that old mom and pop corner store that all us we Indians have been doing business from whichever decade it was, and it just continued that way. Now with them, they have created that reputation.
Yes.
Like if you say Akal Wires, nobody will think of it as a surname. They think of it as a food store.
Food store, right? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So they've already created that link between their service and their name.
Okay.
You understand? So they've got a lot of years behind them, which we can prove.
Yeah, but how do you prevent another Akal Wire from going and opening a store?
Yeah, now that is then an internal family issue. They
may not be related. They could be two completely unrelated Akal Wires. Yeah.
So you can't really stop it, and that is the danger with using your name, or a surname, which is common to a great number of people. So that's why I say rather be more distinctive in choosing your names.
Okay. Let's move on a bit. Can you share some examples of how successful intellectual property strategies have benefited businesses, especially in terms of growth or brand value?
Okay, so we take a very famous one that everybody uses, which is Apple.
Apple, right? Okay. Yeah.
Apple. Apple is a fruit. They've applied it to PCs, and they've developed so it's completely unrelated to the product.
The fruit. Yeah.
The fruit, right? They have maintained their premium market position, and
one of the largest companies in the world.
Yeah. And they're worth billions of dollars.
Absolutely.
So they've trademarked their design, they've trademarked their technology, they've reinforced their customer loyalty, they've contributed to it says contributed to a valuation exceeding $3 trillion.
$3 trillion, that's the valuation of a company. But
Yes.
their turnover sometimes is larger than the GDP of many countries.
Exactly. Yeah. Then you have, let's see, we have Nike, for example, right? In the clothing class.
Yeah.
So they've patented their technologies. I'm sure they've cushioned footwear and what have you. They've trademarked their names, their logos, the swoosh. If you look at the swoosh, you'll know exactly that it is Nike. They've created their position as a brand leader in athletic innovation. If you wear a Nike, that means you're a successful athlete. It makes you want to perform.
Yeah.
It's human perception.
So I've got a question here that's come through, and it says, take the brand Nestle, for example. Okay, so I shouldn't have called it a brand. Is it a brand? Is it a trademark or logo? And they market something called Recoffee from Nestle. So how would you treat these?
Okay, so Nestle is the trading company.
Right.
They would have started with their trading company name, which is Nestle. They protected that. Under Nestle, then they've decided, okay, no, they can make different kinds of products. So those products have different names. Now, in the listener's example, it's the coffee. So that is also a trademark.
Okay.
So all these names, we call them trademarks. So brand name is a trademark. Brand name is a very layman's term. But all these things fall under trademarks.
For example, Palmolive may have Colgate as one of their.
Yes.
Okay, we've got a few minutes left, so let's move on. what steps should a business take to safeguard its intellectual property when expanding internationally? We're living in this cocoon called South Africa, but now I want to go overseas. So where does one start in terms of trying to protect your intellectual property internationally?
Okay, so the similar process, trademark law is or IP law is very unified throughout the world, although it's territorial in rights. So you would still approach your attorney. Please, I need to file a trademark in Europe, for example. So I would go in there, or for example, I would go in there and contact an attorney in the EU and ask them to do a search on this name. So it's basically the similar process. If the search is clear, we file the application for registration. Then you need to monitor and enforce your IP rights.
Okay.
Right? When I say monitor and enforce, it means that you need to check. You need to be on the ball all the time to see if there's anyone infringing or using anything similar or,
okay. Which brings me to a critical question, which is, if I've registered a trademark over a particular brand, for example, and now I'm successful at it, does my trademark last forever, or do I have to renew that trademark every few years?
Okay, so trademarks have a duration of 10 years.
Okay.
On the 10th year anniversary,
right.
we renew it.
Okay.
So it subsists indefinitely,
right.
Provided that you renew every 10 years.
And if I forget to renew it, too bad.
No, it's not too bad. You're not at a loss. You still have 6 months grace period after expiry, and failing that, we can request a restoration of it, but there must be very good reasons for that. Right? So then you protect your trade secrets. Very important to protect your trade secrets.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Trade secrets, what it's all about, right?
Trade secrets, what it's about. And then the other thing that we always ignore is we do not educate our employees on the importance of protecting our IP. So those training programs need to be put in place as well.
Okay, last question before we sign off for the evening is, how has digital transformation impacted on intellectual property protection? And what should businesses consider in terms of online content, software, or proprietary data?
Okay, so with the digital transformation, with the digital world now, there's an increased risk of infringement. And there's unauthorized sharing of copyrighted material. There's rise in cyber IP theft. There are challenges in enforcement because it's very difficult finding somebody on Instagram, for example, who you can sue.
Right.
Then there are new IP categories. It's constantly now evolving with AI and NFTs, and you have to challenge traditional IP laws to include that. So the laws have been trying to accommodate this new landscape that we are entering. Now there's expanded opportunities as well. There's subscription-based streaming device services which generate revenue.
So it's evolving all the time.
Evolving all the time. It's no longer as stagnant as it used to be. It's become very, very dynamic, and we need to just keep up with the route that it's taking.
Okay. Farzanah Manjoo, thanks for joining us this evening. Really been interesting talking to you about intellectual property. Inshallah, I'll get you back in the studio at some later stage to talk about some other aspect of the legal world. But we wish you well in terms of your chosen field of intellectual property. And may you protect many people's intellectual property for many, many years to come. With that, I would sign off for this evening. I think I'm in Cape Town next week, so I won't be back in the studio. I'm rushing out. I hope it stopped raining because I'm rushing out to get in a game of paddle. But inshallah, it has stopped. I wish you all well. We're into what they call the silly month of December. And before we know it, The festive season will be here upon us. So all of you who've just finished your metric exams, those that have now finished school, you're going to get on the parents' nerves for the next month or so. We wish you all well, and inshallah, I should be back with you in 2 weeks' time. With that, Farzanah, thanks for joining us.
Shukran for inviting me to share my little bit of my career and knowledge with you.
Yeah, absolutely. And with that, it's wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.